Today is the grand opening of the Weaving and Sewing Studio. You have lots of choices, as you can see here on the menu. You can weave, you can sew, you can embroider, you can make all kinds of really cool things by doing these three basic types of fiber art. Weaving is a way to connect materials together. All fabric is made by weaving. Sewing is when you connect two pieces of fabric together. And embroidery is a lot like sewing, but it's made to be done so that the stitches are pretty. In the back of the studio, you can find all of the weaving and sewing supplies. There are how-to books and note cards for you to learn how to do the things that I just talked about. And then there are many tools that you will need to do the weaving, sewing, and embroidery. Just take a look around this area and see all the unique supplies available to you. There are several different fabrics in the fabric bin, and then on the door you can see fabric scraps, which would be great for adding into collages or sewing onto your piece, and burlap, which is really great for beginning stitchers. The embroidery hoops are important for embroidery, and in all of these drawers you can find all of the unique buttons and beads and threads. Now if you are going to use the buttons or beads, this year there's a new rule. There are these little cups, like the ketchup cups you get at restaurants. You may only have enough beads that fill the cup once per day. You can have less than that, but if you need more beads, you're going to need to wait until another day. This is an important rule this year so that the supplies last and everybody gets their fair share. Along the wall, you can find all kinds of yarn. When you're getting out yarn or string or ribbon, find the end. That's so important. That way it's all together. And cut off an amount that you need. And then put the rest of the yarn back. That way other people can use the yarn too. So now let's talk about some important skills that you'll need in this studio. The first skill is knowing how to tie a knot. To tie a knot on the end of any type of fiber, yarn, string, ribbon, you're going to loop the piece into a fish shape. Like the fish that you draw that's an oval with a triangle at the end. That little triangle piece you're going to put through the oval part and pull. This creates a tiny little knot. You can repeat this fish shape pull over and over until you have a thick knot. But if you have a piece that you want to combine the two ends, like to make a necklace, you might be wondering how to do that. There are lots of different ways, but you can still do the same type of knot, where you make a circle fish shape, pull the ends together, but this time the two of them, and pull it tight. It makes a tight knot that might not be very pretty, but will be tight and hold well. Knots are great for so many projects, but many of you might be interested in sewing. So let's talk about the basic stitch called a running stitch. I have these different practice sheets that you can use. You're going to need to thread a plastic yarn needle and practice stitching. The running stitch is simply up through the hole and pull it all the way, and down through the next hole and pull it all the way. And repeat that. Up, pull, down, pull, up, pull. If you get to an accident spot where you have the yarn that goes around rather than up and down, just reverse the stitch and continue up and down, up and down. These cards range from easy to medium to hard, and you can challenge yourself until you feel successful completing the running stitch. Now this year, if you'd like to sew something with a sharp needle, there is a big test that you need to complete. At the back of the room in the sewing center, you can find a sewing skill practice sheet. Write your name on it and get some yarn, tie a knot at the end of the yarn, and attach a needle to the yarn. You're going to poke holes into the paper with a plastic needle and practice and show me that you can do a running stitch. It is important that you can do this running stitch without ripping the paper too much or leaving big giant bobbles of thread. At the end, you're going to need to figure out a way to take the yarn off by cutting it and tying it. And once you've successfully completed this sewing skills practice sheet, you may access the sewing kits. The sewing kits are in these old ice cream containers, and they contain the sharp needles and some thread and some special scissors good for sewing and embroidery.